Welcome along. In this deep dive, we're exploring a story that really sticks with you, the road to Emmaus from Luke's Gospel.
And we're pairing it with a modern sermon that looks at what this ancient story might mean for people today.
Right. So our mission really is to unpack this journey, the biblical one and the sort of metaphorical one, and see why it still resonates.
We've got Luke chapter 24, the original account. That's our starting point.
Okay.
And then this contemporary sermon reflecting on it. Two really interesting sources.
So let's set the scene. It's Easter Sunday, yeah.
That's right. It's the same day the tomb was found empty, the third day since the crucifixion.
And these two followers, they're walking away from Jerusalem, heading to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles, the text says.
Yeah. And they're just talking, trying to process everything that's just happened, the shock, the confusion.
I can only imagine. Their world's been turned upside down. Crucifixion. Now these whispers about an empty tomb. It's a lot.
It really is. And the sermon, it really focuses on that state of mind, that 3 days later feeling.
What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, it's like the initial fast of shock might be fading slightly, but what's left is this heavy, kind of dull ache of disappointment, maybe confusion, uncertainty.
Right, like the world's maybe starting to tick forwards again, but you're stuck, still back there in the immediate aftermath.
Exactly. You're sort of processing it. And the sermon suggests Emmaus itself, the place. Well, scholars actually debate where it even was.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just about a dot on a map.
Not entirely. The sermon frames it more as a state of being. You know, that feeling of being 7 miles away and 3 days later.
Okay.
It's that place you go, maybe mentally or emotionally, when you feel like there's nothing left to do in Jerusalem, nowhere else to turn. You just walk.
7 miles away, far enough to feel removed, but maybe not far enough to actually escape the feeling.
That's exactly the idea the sermon explores. It's a distance, but maybe not a true escape from that profound sense of loss or things not turning out how you hoped.
So, okay, they're walking along, deep in this conversation, feeling this way.
And then a stranger joins them on the road.
Just walks up alongside them.
Yeah. And Luke tells us, interestingly, that they were somehow kept from recognizing him.
So it's Jesus, but they don't know it's Jesus.
Right. And he asks them, what are you guys talking about?
And their reaction is pretty telling, isn't it? Cleopas basically says, are you seriously the only person visiting Jerusalem who hasn't heard about all the stuff that's happened?
Yeah, it shows just how huge these events were. They were completely consumed by it.
So they explain everything.
They do. They tell the stranger all about Jesus, his ministry, their hopes that he was the Messiah, the one to redeem Israel.
And then the crucifixion, the crushing end to those hopes.
Exactly. And the sermon points out that having this stranger ask questions might have even felt a bit intrusive, maybe, when they're so deep in their grief.
I could see that. And then what does the stranger Jesus do?
Well, this is amazing. He starts walking them through the scriptures.
Like right there on the road?
Yeah.
Starting with Moses, going through all the prophets, and explaining how everything pointed towards this, towards the Messiah having to suffer and then enter his glory.
Wow. That must have been incredible. A personal tour of the Old Testament, suddenly making sense of everything they just lived through.
Can you imagine? And Luke writes that their hearts were burning within them while he talked.
That phrase always stands out. What do you think that burning felt like? Was it just emotion?
Well, the sermon suggests it was more than just like a warm feeling. It was probably this intense intellectual and spiritual spark.
Ah.
Like familiar words, familiar prophecies suddenly clicking into place, illuminated by what had just happened to Jesus. It's that aha moment, but on a profound level.
So even though they didn't recognize him physically?
The power of the scriptures explained in this new light was already working on them deeply, which, says something about the power of these texts themselves.
Definitely. Okay, so they finally reach Emmaus.
And Jesus acts like he's going to keep walking.
But they stop him. Yeah, they urge him, stay with us. It's nearly evening. The day is almost over.
Makes sense. So he agrees.
He does. He goes in to stay with them. And they sit down for a meal. And this is the moment.
The breaking of the bread.
Exactly. Luke says, when he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them.
And then?
Then their eyes were opened and they recognized him.
Just like that. In that simple action. Why that? What's so significant about breaking bread?
Well, both Luke and the sermon really zeroed in on this. It was such a familiar act, something Jesus likely did countless times when he shared meals with them.
And the intimacy, maybe? A gesture they knew.
Precisely. That familiar action, in that shared moment of, hospitality and communion,
Hmm.
suddenly the veil lifts. They see him.
And the sermon we looked at adds another layer, doesn't it? About his hands.
It does. It draws attention to the idea that the hands breaking that bread were the same hands that still bore the marks of the nails of his suffering.
Wow. So it wasn't just seeing a familiar action.
It was seeing the suffering and the love intertwined. In that moment, they grasped the reality of his sacrifice, the depth of his love, maybe in a way they hadn't before. It's that connection between the physical act and the spiritual reality.
That's powerful, seeing the connection between their own loss and his suffering.
Yeah, the sermon suggests that maybe in recognizing his suffering through that simple act, they understood their own pain wasn't just pointless or isolating,
He was part of something bigger.
connected to this huge story of love, suffering, and redemption. And that recognition, that sudden, stunning clarity, it changes everything for them.
And then, poof, he's gone.
Just vanishes from their sight as suddenly as he appeared.
But they don't just sit there stunned.
Not at all. Their reaction is immediate. Forget being tired, forget that it's late, forget the 7 miles they just walked.
They head straight back to Jerusalem.
Instantly, that same hour, they have to tell the others. The news is too big, too incredible. He is risen. They've seen him.
So you've got this whole arc from despair and confusion on the road.
To an unexpected encounter, a new understanding through Scripture.
That burning heart feeling. Then the aha moment of recognition over a shared meal.
Leading to this explosion of joy and purpose that sends them running back. It's quite a journey in just a few hours.
It really is. Which brings us back to that modern interpretation, the sermon's take.
Right. The idea that this road to Emmaus isn't just something that happened 2,000 years ago.
It's a metaphor for those times in our own lives, maybe, when we feel a bit lost, disillusioned, that 7 miles away, 3 days later, feeling after, I don't know, a big disappointment or loss.
Exactly. When the world seems to be moving on, but you're still carrying the weight of it, trying to make sense of things, feeling a bit isolated, maybe walking that road alone, or perhaps with someone else who feels just as lost.
But the story and the sermon suggest that even on those roads,
There's potential for unexpected encounters, moments that bring clarity, maybe shift your perspective. It might not be Jesus literally walking alongside you.
no, but it could be, what, a conversation, something you read, an experience.
Yeah, something that suddenly helps the pieces click together, that makes your heart burn with a new understanding, or a flicker of hope when you least expect it.
And that moment of recognition, the breaking of the bread.
Mm.
The sermon connects that to moments of real human connection, right?
It does. It suggests those moments where maybe we share our vulnerability, our struggles, maybe even our shared suffering with someone else.
And in that connection,
We find something deeper, an understanding that we're not alone in our pain, that we're connected perhaps by love, even when things feel bleak. It's about seeing beyond just your own hurt.
so maybe a final thought then for you listening. Think about your own life. Have you had roads to Emmaus?
Yeah, those times of feeling adrift after something significant. What were the unexpected encounters or maybe small moments that helped you see things differently?
What does it mean for you to find connection, maybe even hope, when you feel like you're miles away from where you thought you'd be, and it feels like it's been days since things made sense?
It's often in those unexpected moments, isn't it? Those breaking bread connections, however they show up, that might just point the way back toward understanding, something to think about.